Welcome to Whistleblowers in partnership with Wix Trade Pro. Coming up,
Danny Baker called out Ian Ladyman and said, imagine being so disconnected from the vitality of what football is. These people are AI football fans, or like pub bores who will tell you the route you've driven to somewhere was actually the wrong way.
Danny Baker is quite keen to call someone like me a bore. I am boring, just in ways that he doesn't know.
Mark Clattenburg, what do you think of Howard Webb?
No comment.
Welcome to Whistleblowers, the podcast, with Ian Ladyman, Mark Clattenburg and Gordon Smart. The three of us have a few air miles between us, but today we're very close to home because Ian Ladyman, I'm going to start with turf that you know very well, where you've been given stick on social media from Danny Baker, broadcasting legend. Danny Baker's full of great stuff, by the way. He used to say, don't let the light in on the magic. Well, here's the light in on the magic on Ian Ladyman, right? Danny Baker called out Ian Ladyman and said, imagine being so disconnected from the vitality of what football is that you watch that goal, that's in the Liverpool City game, and then arrive at this. These people are AI football fans, or like pub bores who will tell you the route you've driven to somewhere was actually the wrong way. Mark Clattenburg, Danny Baker calling out Ian Ladyman. What do you reckon?
Absolute tosh.
If
Danny Baker, first of all, thinks that this should be allowed, that two fouls make a right, two wrongs make a right, and the goal should be allowed, then he's disillusioned. This could have had massive impact on a title race or qualification for Champions League because goal difference counts, this could have had a massive impact. I get it if it was a second leg of a cup match and it was 1-4, whatever, 4-1, whatever, the result was already sorted. But while the Premier League has goal difference, this could have had a huge impact.
And on the referee's career as well.
Yeah,
probably.
so if we're talking about this,
right?
There's three incidents to look at here. When the first of all, there was an issue where was Haaland in an offside position because the goalkeeper had advanced for the corner kick. But what we've got to remember is Haaland was in his own half, and the laws is quite clear. You can't be offside if you're in your own half. So that cleared one up. Then what you've got Szoboszlai and Haaland in a foot race to get to the loose ball because the ball isn't going into the goal at that point. So Haaland's favourite to get it, and as he's about to get it, Szoboszlai pulls his shirt and pulls him back. They then advance within a second or two. The ball's going towards the goal. And what Haaland does, because Szoboszlai's ahead of Haaland, he pulls him back, which stops Szoboszlai getting to the ball and saving a certain goal. So, what the referee has to look at here is, one, the first contact by Haaland, was it a foul by Szoboszlai? Yes, it was. Does he play an advantage? Possibly. We don't 100% know, but possibly played an advantage. Within seconds of that advantage being played, bearing in mind, if a referee plays an advantage, we've seen before, you can go back to the original decision. We then see another foul. We can't then turn round like Gary Neville and Danny Baker and a lot of other people, Neil Warnock, Jamie Carragher, say, let's just give the goal because there's a foul. And that foul, if the ball was going in the goal and you can see the ball practically going over the line, and there was a foul, I get that. We can have that discussion and go, you know what, we could probably use a bit of common sense. We're not going to send the player off, but we're giving the goal. But while Szoboszlai could have easily stopped that ball from going in the goal, we're then turning a blind eye and saying we're not going to give the foul. I'm absolutely mind blown that we can't follow the laws of the game.
We're 4 days on, right, and we're still talking about it, Ian. But you know, two things. Are you emotionally moved by the fact that Clattenburg stood up for you in such an impassioned way? Or are you emotionally...
I did like his tweet.
Or are you distraught about the way the Bakers dispatched you?
I must owe Clattenburg money. That's what I was going to say. Maybe I owe him lunch or something. Yeah, look, the Danny Baker thing, I just felt a bit sad by it because I used to listen to Danny Baker when he did that brilliant show with the other Danny back in the day. And back in, Radio 5 years ago, and it was groundbreaking stuff. They were funny. They were deeply knowledgeable about football. It felt very like groundbreaking radio at the time. And people change, don't they? And careers change. And just to see, I was looking through Danny Baker's timeline, and he's clearly very anti-VAR. So am I, by the way. Yeah. So am I.
Aren't we all?
Okay, so he's anti-VAR, so Danny and I have something in common. But he's clearly very angry about it, and he was calling out he called out a guy from the BBC as well, and he decided to call out me because I was at the game, and as I watched the replays on the screens in the press box unfold, I said to Lewis Steele, our Merseyside guy next to me, I said, "Oh, this will be disallowed, and Zoboslai's going to have to go." It's obvious. It's obvious. You can't play an advantage and then ignore subsequent fouls. You just can't. So what amazed me was that people like Danny Baker and lots of other people who I would have thought probably should know better, the basis of their argument to allow that goal appears to be as simple as it's much more fun to allow it. Let's forget the rules for a moment.
So I'm going to hold you for a second there, right?
You just can't do that.
But but it's interesting, isn't it? Who's on which side?
You can't suspend the rules.
No, but
just because it feels good.
But I get, going back to what they were saying, Ian, and a lot of people are saying, I get the idea of using common sense. Referees have that.
You've argued for that quite a lot, right?
Referees have that in their power. They can use common sense. If that ball, let's be factual here. If that ball is going inside the goal, then that foul is immaterial. Yes or not? If the ball is going inside the goal, for sure it's going inside the goal, then there's no need for the referee to even think that I need to award that foul because the ball was going inside the goal. While there was a doubt that ball wasn't going inside the goal, yes, it was going in, but Zoboslai could have easily intercepted that ball from going in, but he was prevented because of the foul. You can't then turn around and use common sense. You have to apply the law.
Here's the thing. Is the issue then that there was a second foul, right? So say, for instance, Haaland has been pulled back, right? Mm-hmm. And Zoboslai doesn't then foul Haaland and the ball goes in the net. Is it a different decision then?
Yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah, it's a goal.
It's a goal, right?
Because he's played the advantage.
So he's played the
advantage. You can't play the advantage on the second one because there was no advantage.
Haaland actually made an arse of it there?
Yeah, but yes, he did.
No, because Zoboslai got ahead of him by fouling him. So he was going to clear it.
Ball. Yeah.
So he was going to clear it.
And that's the difference, what people forget.
Yeah.
I get where both sides are sitting here. As an ex-referee, I sit and I feel for the referees. And I want to make a valid point in a minute. If the ball wasn't going inside the goal, if the ball was going inside the goal, the referee can use common sense and ignore the second foul. If the ball was sure going inside the goal and Zoboslai couldn't get to it, they can use common sense because the foul's immaterial. It wasn't going to affect the outcome of the result, i.e. the ball going inside the goal. So that's where people are lost. The fact of where the ball was going, it was easily going to be intercepted. So you can't then turn around and say, because of Zoboslai getting fouled.
But you fundamentally just can't in football. You can't. Danny Baker is quite keen to call someone like me a bore, suggesting that I don't understand.
AI bore.
An AI bore. I am boring just in ways that he doesn't know, not for the reasons he thinks I am. You can't just decide to suspend the laws of the game because it suits everybody. You just can't. And I'm afraid if you think that, then you're the one who doesn't understand football. Danny Baker's kind of presented himself as some kind of someone who has a great feel for the game and understands the soul of the game. Yeah. But if you don't understand the rules, mate, you don't understand the soul of the game.
Let's be clear, right? Pep said, come on, referee, just give the goal, go home, right? So the pundits who think the goal should have stood, Gary Neville, Wayne Rooney, Jamie Carragher, Neil Warnock, Ali McCoist. Pundits against that, Roy Keane, Joe Hart, Nicky Butt, Micah Richards, Jason Cundy and a few others. But it's interesting, isn't it, the divide in the common sense AI bore thing.
Even Wayne Rooney on Match of the Day said, I know how... He said, I've lost the league title by one goal.
That was a great point.
The Aguero goal in 2012 was a goal difference, goal scored of +1 in the favour of Manchester City.
So there's a lot of...
So Rooney, of all people, should understand
also, Liverpool are struggling for a right-back at the moment. Soboslai's been filling in there. He's now suspended for, one game?
So as we sit here on the Wednesday morning, Liverpool at Sunderland tonight, and he won't play. So again, sitting in the press box, I said to Lewis, this suits... no one for what is about to happen. City are going to lose a goal, and Liverpool are going to lose a player, but it still has to happen.
And they're battling for Champions League football.
It still has to happen.
That's an expensive red card, right?
Absolutely.
It's not just that; it could be more expensive the goal. We don't know yet, do we? Yeah. We don't know how much impact that's going to cause till the end of the season. Because if Liverpool qualify for the Champions League by 1 goal. That's huge.
Can I make one really boring technical point as
What?
well? Do you not think the Craig Pawson microphone thing really made it a lot worse?
I described it.
It's irritating.
I described it in a column I wrote on Monday morning as like a guy trying to make a phone call from the moon on a Nokia whilst out for a jog. It's exactly what it sounded like. He was out of breath.
I read
the
that.
connection was terrible, and it was utterly pointless.
Pointless.
I know that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark. I think you were for the idea of referees explaining decisions on pitch.
Like rugby union. Not what
Again,
the-
I'm against
gladiators.
it. We don't. Referees' decisions final. They don't owe us an explanation as to why they've made a decision. But if they are going to give us an explanation, then please let us be able to hear the damn thing.
That's the other thing, isn't it? Is it about is the referee in the game now, Mark? Do you think the referee has
No.
ultimate control anymore?
No, they said when VR was introduced, it would be minimal. What was it?
Minimal involvement.
Minimal involvement, minimum interference.
Yeah.
It's actually the opposite. And you know what? I remember the laws when VR protocol, when it was first introduced, was the referee is the sole power. That's not anymore. The VAR is now creating this power and turning the referee's decisions over. But you know what I'm really sad about? And this is probably why football's in this mess at the moment, in my opinion. Like the abuse that referees get and, you know, the way there's anger in football fans is an exact of what happened at the weekend. We're now got people saying that the referees have spoiled the game. They've damaged the game. It was a wonderful moment in the Premier League history. There's no way this should be disallowed.
Gary Neville said you've just killed one of the great moments of the season.
Sorry? Haaland and Zoboslai broke that, not the referee. And let's not...
And that's what disappoints me.
It's sad for me to say it, Ian, today, right? And I'm pleased I'm out the game. Because if the referees are getting abuse when they've made a correct decision, I'm sorry. Thank God I'm out.
Yeah, and Mark, and you know what? That is what disappoints me. Someone like Danny Baker from his bedroom, wherever his kitchen table, wherever he spends his time these days, wants to kind of, you know, use his platform to 500,000 Twitter followers, try and have a go at me, encourage a pile on me. I don't know why you would do that. I think you've got to be quite sad to do that. I think you can make your point about anything on social media without encouraging a pile on somebody else. I don't know why people do that. I think it says a lot about them, but who really cares? But when someone like Gary, who we all respect greatly for his analysis of football generally, I think he is probably the best pundit out there, Gary. Why he would say thank you for ruining one of the moments of the season? Well, what do you expect the referee to do? Those are the rules.
Also, actually, it's a really technically difficult
bizarre.
situation in a game at that state. And by the way, what a brilliant game. Let's not lose the fact that it was a
brilliant
great
finish
game.
to a game.
But technically, a really difficult thing to get your head around. I mean, a lot of fans would have been trying to unpick that and in the ground, like what happened there. So, it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one for the officials.
I think looking back, if I pre-VAR, the referee should have sorted it out in a better way. I think he should have give it without the VAR. He should have allowed the advantage for Haaland, saw the initial foul by Zoboslai, and then just went back to the original foul and given the red card. And I think people would have accepted and gone, you know what, I understood that.
Yeah. It's
because it's gone to VAR, they've gone to the screen, he's come up with an explanation that was a bit wishy-washy, and in the end, people are debating it.
I'm repeating myself, but I just think we pay our subscriptions and to listen to experts, and I think they've just got to do better in that moment. I think they've just got to do better in that moment.
Well, moving on from Danny Baker, as we walked in this morning, Thomas Frank sacked at Spurs, so that kills my prediction of Spurs finishing 5th.
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't?
I mean, that's
Just
true.
5th under Thomas Frank.
They may go 5 hopefully.
Have you seen the Premier League? There's only about 2 points between 15th and 4th anyway.
That's it. Yeah, what I meant to say was Manchester United would finish 5th. I just got the name of the club wrong. Although I did get Amarain to leave at Christmas, right? So it balances itself up. But I think, Ian, it was about 4 weeks ago you said there's something about you can see the physical shrinking of a manager when you know that the oxygen's leaving.
Yeah.
And it was happening, wasn't it, for a while now?
I mean, I said that after the first North London derby.
And they're playing them again.
And they've sacked him before the return game, which is
11 days away as we do.
Spurs are out of the cup already, so they've got a long run. Spurs have obviously thought, right, we've got 11 days before this game. It gives us time to get our ducks in a row. I was at the Man United West Ham game on Tuesday evening, And as you do, you sit there in the press box doing your work, but you're also keeping your eye on the other scores. And the Tottenham one, as it kind of edged towards its denouement, I was thinking if he loses that, then he'll go. He'll have to go.
Yeah.
There's certain times when you just think he has to go now because they are very, very close to the bottom three. I've got Tottenham friends in this office who've been saying to me for a while, we're going to get in a relegation scrap. And I've been saying, don't be ridiculous. And they were right. They are.
And
when you get to that point and you've got Arsenal at home next up and West Ham are winning or picking up points beneath you, you have to do something.
Your captain and best player suspended.
Sorry, pal?
Your captain and best player suspended for a rash tackle.
Tottenham Hotspur cannot allow themselves to get relegated. And I think to safeguard their own immediate future, sadly, they had to sack a bloke who most of the people in my industry think a great deal of.
They do, yeah.
But he's failed. He's failed.
But it's bonkers, isn't it? And it goes back to my argument many, many times. Clubs, they win a trophy. Tottenham won a European trophy last year. Probably the Premier League's positioning wasn't good enough for the club. And they've gone backwards again. Everton have done it. West Ham have done it. How many clubs are going to learn that, you know what, let's build? Yeah, you might have had a bad season in the Premier League. But Ange Postecoglou, yes, his style of play, Tottenham fans were criticising. But what if he put them in this position?
But look at the managers now then. That's a lot since Pochettino, isn't it? Think about it. Nuno, Conte, Mourinho, Frank. They're going through managers.
Postecoglou, yeah, they are. But and that's a sure sign of they're desperately still looking for a way to get it right. Yeah. They've got it right off the field with the stadium. We've talked about that before. But unless you buy the right players, and as Man United have found out, if you keep buying the wrong players and appointing the wrong managers, you will just go round and round in circles. Tottenham certainly keep buying the wrong players. They had a sweet spot of a recruitment spell when the likes of Van der Ven and Romero and Kulusevski and Bentancur and others all kind of arrived at the same time and gave them a real push forward, which they first had under Postecoglou. But subsequently, their recruitment has been hit and miss. And Frank had to go. I'll read some killer stats in a minute. But again, when you look at the Tottenham team that played last night or on Tuesday night against Newcastle, which I did, that isn't really a team fit for where Tottenham need to go. I know they've got some injuries. Just mentioned Kulusevski and James Maddison and Kudos and people like that. But it's not a squad. And I know people close to Tottenham, very close to Tottenham, who keep saying to me and have said to me all season, the squad's not good enough. The squad's not good enough. It's just not good enough.
Another aspect of this for me as well is Postecoglou. I felt like he got really grumpy and things got quite fractious with the press, right?
Oh, yeah.
That didn't happen north of the border. He handled things brilliantly. Thomas Frank, the other end of the spectrum, I think he handles the press and the media side of it brilliantly. So that's clearly not an issue.
I mean, look, I've just very quickly, I mean, I just had a quick look before we came on. I mean, so they've, the only teams Tottenham have beaten in the Premier League since October are Palace and Brentford.
Yep.
And, we're halfway to March here, guys. And I've actually fallen into the trap. I've been one of the people who've fallen into the trap because I think I was quite desperate for him to do well, of saying, yeah, but they finished fourth in the Champions League. You can't sack a guy who's finished fourth in the Champions League table and they're in the last 16. You can't sack him. You've got to give him reward for that. And I have to say, someone else pointed out, and I'm stealing their work, but I'm going to do it anyway. It was Martin Samuel, from the Times, pointed out quite rightly.
Who have they played?
Look at the teams that they beat.
Who have they played?
The teams that Tottenham beat in the Champions League were glasses on again. So there's 36 teams in the Champions League table. They beat Dortmund, Frankfurt, Prague, Slavia Prague, Copenhagen, Villarreal. Copenhagen finished 31st, Frankfurt 33rd, Prague 34th, Villarreal 35th. Okay? So they just got a really lucky Champions League draw and they beat the teams that they should have beaten. Yeah. They beat the rubbish in the Champions League. They lost to PSG, drew with Bodo and with Monaco, and they can't beat Premier League teams. They never look like beating Premier League teams. Yeah. The XGs are embarrassingly bad at home, and I'm afraid they had reached that point.
Up? Have they got somebody?
I think it will be. I'd be amazed if it's not Pochettino next season.
Right. I was going to say it can't be now.
Can't be now. He's got
Zerbe's getting a lot of mentions.
I'd be amazed if it's not Pochettino next season, but I could be outdated by the time people listen to this pod. Okay, they won't listen to it for 24 hours. If I was them, this is just me, not really based on any great knowledge, I would do interim between now and the end of the season. Keep us up. Just keep us up. If you can get us a miracle in the Champions League and get us to the quarterfinal or something, great. And then Poch won't stay with the US after the World Cup, I'm sure. And then get Pochettino back, because I think there is unfinished business.
You're seconds away from saying Big Sam Allardyce, aren't you?
Yeah.
Give it to Big Mick.
If you're going on how clubs are structured now, we talk about this week on week, don't we? How clubs are structured with the sporting directors. You've said just now that Tottenham's problems is the lack of depth in the squad. What's Poch going to do? Well, honestly, I'm convinced. If Tottenham's model is this, and their recruitment's so bad, what's a new coach? Because Thomas Frank, to all of us, was a top coach. What he did at Brentford was remarkable. And he's gone to a Tottenham team who are lacking in a lot of areas. What's a new coach going to do?
Well,
what's Poch in unfinished business? What's Poch going to do?
Well, they are.
I like Poch, but
they will get a decent return from this year's Champions League run. Okay, we've spoken before about the fact that stadium is now giving them a license to print money, which it has. Okay, so there should be some money to spend, and they have got a core of players. But we said it before on this podcast, they need to buy a couple of oven-ready players in the summer. There's absolutely no reason why they can't do that. And if you've got a manager in the door who you know can do it, and you know has done it before, and you know can cope, and you know that will get leeway and time from the supporters, which no manager at Tottenham ever gets, but Pochettino would, you will give yourself half a chance there.
I was reading about Harry Kane's contract talks at Bayern Munich. Yeah. A slight suggestion he's delaying his signature.
Coming back to Arsenal. That's where we're coming.
Big Alan Shearer will be in panic mode, won't he?
Could you imagine if Harry Kane did that?
What, went to Arsenal, came back to Tottenham?
No, Arsenal.
Oh, Arsenal, Man United was every
he couldn't do
every
it.
possibility.
You cannot do that.
Could that be a possibility?
What?
Harry Kane going to Arsenal?
The best signing Arsenal could make.
Could that really happen? Could that Harry Kane's got
Sol Campbell
come on.
went the other way.
I'm not sure about that.
You never know, do you? But Tottenham are an example of a club that have hit upon a model, and they thought and they've stuck to it, buy young and develop, and it's bit them on the backside, frankly.
Ian, you called it right, and it was a good few weeks ago, so it was after the last derby, I think, wasn't it? And Mark, I think, bearing in mind that we are recording this before Nottingham Forest play, but there is another manager, it was mentioned in the Mail this week as well, is under a bit of pressure.
Yeah.
You know Nottingham Forest inside out, depending on how it's Wolves they're playing, right?
Yep.
If Nottingham Forest get a draw, or if Nottingham Forest lose, will Marinakis keep Sean Dyche?
No. The simple answer will be no. Sean Dyche will think, and his coaching staff will think, that he's improved things, because when he took over, they were in the bottom three.
Yeah. Second
bottom, was that correct? I think my knowledge tells us that they were second bottom. So he's actually improved them. He's improved their position. The problem you've got, especially with an owner like Marinakis, is that from my experience working with inside the club and working around him, he will press the button when he feels like his investment is at risk. He's invested a lot of money in Nottingham Forest. When Steve Cooper got Nottingham Forest promoted from absolutely nowhere, because they were second bottom at the time when Steve took over, and worked miracles, Marinakis informed the club, the fans, that he wants them in Europe, which he's done. He's got them a bit of stability in the Premier League, 3 years now, but the first 2 years were big risks. And you saw it with Steve Cooper. The moment there was a risk of being relegated, he pulls the plug. Nuno was also at risk when there were two in his first season, not last season, the season before. Nuno was a big risk to be sacked just before the end of the season, because Marinakis felt that his investment was at risk of being relegated. That's why there was tweets. That's why there was lots of arguments about refereeing decisions, because he panicked that his team could get relegated. And he'll be in that moment today where he'll be thinking that if the result isn't going Nottingham Forest way tonight, you will see Marinakis leave his seat down to his boardroom and make a decision like he did with Hans Postecoglou.
Paint that picture then, right? So the game's going, right? Wolves are 1-0 up. Mr. Marinakis, what happens? Because he's got form for this happening. You know, he's let a manager go. I mean, Postecoglou, the decision was made. Gone.
That way he was informed in the tunnel.
Mm.
Will he do it that night, or will he wait for the next day, sleep on it, or he'll make a decision?
Because he's very impulsive, very strong and impulsive guy that he'll just do it there and then. Yeah. He won't wait unless there's somebody with him that gives him the rationale behind why to keep him. Mm-hmm. And there will be an argument, or there will be some arguments to keep Sean Dyche. You know, Sean Dyche is a local boy. His coaching staff are local. They know what that means to the club. They know that the club and Nottingham Forest, to the city, the fans, everything around it, they know it. You know, there's nothing, you know, Sean Dyche lives and loves Nottingham Forest. But at the end of the day, it's a result-driven sport. And while West Ham, and this is the issue that's caused it, because West Ham have picked up. If West Ham were 9 points
West Ham managed by Nuno,
under Nuno,
bloke sacked at the start of the season.
No irony there, is there?
But if West Ham were 9 points behind Forest, or 7 points behind Forest, this game against Wolves, yes, it's important, but a point would have been enough.
Yeah,
because it would have kept the gaps. The problem is now this is a win. It's a must-win game, and if they don't get that result, Marinakis will be looking at the next set of fixtures after the cup and thinking, well, hold on, we've lost against Wolves. We're now close to West Ham.
We've lost against Leeds.
We've lost against Leeds, and which was a poor performance. It wasn't just a bad. Yeah, it wasn't just a loss. It was a poor performance. He'll know that it's time to move, and I know that everybody's arguing who would come in and do the job.
It's tight down there, isn't it? I say down there.
The problem with Marinakis, it is tight, Gordon. But I mean, Mark's right. I've had a bad feeling in my stomach about Forest for about a month. I had it before they played at West Ham. I thought if he lose this one, he could sack him, and they won that one, and that's given him a bit of oxygen. I've had a bad feeling about it just because of the way you can smell it at Forest. Yeah. The problem with Marinakis is that he never seems to understand his own role in his own club's problems. He doesn't seem to look at, I've said on this podcast before about having spent time with people who are close to Marinakis, and he doesn't have people around him who will say to him, that's wrong, that was wrong, we did that wrong, you did that wrong. It's not that kind of culture. If it is a culture of, I'm in charge, I know what I'm doing, and if it's not working, I will change it. And at no point does Marinakis ever turn around and say, well, hang on a minute, have I played a part in my own club's downfall here? Decisions that I have made, such as sacking Nuno, such as bringing Edu to the club, and I'll get onto that in a minute. And as long as that continues, I think Forest, for all that Marinakis has done for Forest, and there are Forest fans who think, because I know quite a few from having lived and worked there, who say to me, oh yeah, he's a madman, but he's our madman and we love him. Yeah. So he will do things. He will rebuild the stadium. Mm-hmm. He has taken him into Europe. He has put a structure in place that gets into an FA Cup semi-final. But while he's there, I think there'll be a cycle of boom and bust that won't change. Forest will just go round and round and round. Okay? And look, and listen to this. So we know what they did last season. Almost got in the Champions League. Semi-finals of the FA Cup. They've hit upon a manager who clearly is very at home, has a formula. They then spend an absolute fortune.
Players he didn't want
in the summer. Okay?
And Mari Hutchinson was one.
We know that Marinakis brought Edu in from Arsenal. This list of players, I bet you won't even have heard of some of them. So they spent about £150 million on Omar Hutchinson, Dan Ndoye, Dylan Bakwa, Arnau Kalimwendo, and James McAtee. Okay? And of those half a dozen players, only one of them, Ndoye, has made more than 10 league starts. Okay? And at the cheaper end of the scale, they've had the guy, Igor Jesus, who has played a bit up front, and then two lone players like Douglas Luiz, who's ended up back at Aston Villa, and Zinchenko came from Arsenal, and is now at Ajax.
Douglas Luiz didn't work, did it?
Recruitment's been an absolute disaster, and they sacked the manager. So what they've essentially done is looked at a winning formula from last season and torn it up.
Do you know?
So what do they expect?
Is there a way to ascertain who signed those players, though? Because I always got the sense that they weren't the manager's choice.
But that proved a point. If you're talking about the choice, Amari Hutchinson is a prime example.
Yeah.
Where Nuno didn't add him to the Europa League squad.
Correct.
And admitted him, and he was the record signing at the time. He was Nottingham Forest record signing, and Nuno said he wasn't going to be a part of that squad. And that was Nuno's downfall, because the club have invested a lot of money in this player, and that was a clear sign that
It's a
the manager
really
or the coach
public
didn't want
snub,
him.
isn't it? Yeah.
And the coach didn't want him. So there's a prime example of one player that was clear to all. The rest we don't know about.
Now we've sat on this podcast before and talked about this, and we've talked about the influence of the role of Edu, the influence of agents like Keir Jarabshin, and that's all very normal. It happens at clubs. There's nothing wrong with it. It's above board. Agents are allowed to be close to football club owners and advise them. It happens. We've seen the way it's worked at Wolves. Keir's worked very well for other clubs. But when it doesn't work, and you do absolutely fundamentally alter what appears to be a winning formula at your football club, if it doesn't work, there's got to be someone else to blame apart from the first team coach. There simply has to. And at Forest, there won't be. It'll always be the coach who takes the fall every single time.
At this moment in time,
every single time.
I don't think he'll change Edu at this moment in time. But if the recruitment is as bad as it's been, like you've just named 4 or 5 players there that have played less than 10 games, then that will change. Because he's changed many people in the past. What I find with Marinakis, and we've got to give him some credit, he's promised things to Nottingham Forest fans and delivered. Yeah. That's fact. What he's done and everything he's touched in his life, from shipping to TV to football clubs, because he doesn't just own Nottingham Forest. He owns Rio Avenue in Portugal, takes them to mid-table. Olympiacos are one of the most successful teams in Greece. They won the double last year. So at this moment in time, he's very successful. And while he believes he wants all of his, he's got Olympiacos in Champions League, he wants Nottingham Forest the same position, he wants Rio Avenue in the same position, he'll do whatever he thinks he can do to make it successful. But the problem is, in football, we know there's no clear formula.
Well, that you say that. You talk about Olympiacos, it's different. The one of the biggest, if not the biggest team in Greece. Okay, so it's in inverted commas easier to do well. If you're going to do well at Forest, you have to have strategy. You have to have strategy. You can't win long term at Forest by changing your mind and your formula and your coach every 3 months. If they sack Dice, they'll end up the season with 4 managers. How many football clubs have ever gone anywhere on the back of 4 managers in one season?
The only thing I'll say, just contradicting what you said,
you need
Olympiacos is still more difficult for him because he's Greek. Olympiacos don't have it on a plate every year. It's very, very difficult league now. AEK Athens are top of the league now. Olympiacos are second. It's very, very difficult. But with him being Greek and his involvement in that club is more difficult than it is at Nottingham Forest. He can sell Nottingham Forest tomorrow. Olympiacos is his born and bred club. It's his club. With Nottingham Forest, he bought the club at the time and he thought, why am I buying a football club? Why am I buying Nottingham Forest? He bought it reasonably priced, but he also bought it because it had history. And Marinakis, for example, loves history. He loves the thought of the European
romance,
the romance of it. Like, for example, who was the ex-player who wanted? Was it Viv Anderson? Viv Anderson. There's an example of what means to him. Viv Anderson had a financial issue, wanted to sell his memorabilia from his good times. And what did Marinakis do before it went to auction? He said, no, it's not going to auction. By the way, we're going to buy it. We'll take it, but we're going to give you it back. That's because
I don't think anyone doubts the fact that Marinakis wants the right things for Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
He's not there for any malevolent reasons. There's nothing Machiavellian about it. He's there because he wants Nottingham Forest to be successful, but he's going about it the wrong way. It's mad. It's chaos behind the scenes at Forest. You speak to people who work there. It's madness. It's a crazy football club. You mentioned Ross Wilson earlier. So what was his title at Forest? He was sporting director or something, wasn't he?
He was Rangers as well.
I wouldn't like to be 100% sure.
Right, well, he was. He was supposed
to. No, his title.
He certainly was supposed to have an input in recruiting players. I'll tell you a story about Ross Wilson. I know somebody who worked at Forest who was at the stadium one day, and Ross Wilson got in touch to say, someone's left a gate open round the back there. It needs closing. And this guy said, why are you looking at CCTV of gates that aren't and are open and shouldn't be open and should be open? And his reply was, I've got nothing else to do.
Wow.
In other words, the job I was hired to do has long been taken out of my hands and given to somebody else.
He's a janitor.
What a surprise.
Wow.
What a surprise. He didn't last much longer.
Well,
No,
let's move that on a little bit, right? Because
I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're
Just a
saying.
story.
No, but
Some
I've worked with Ross, and I find Ross a great guy. And I had nearly a year with Ross, and I saw some of it. You're right. Ross did a lot of things. I'm not sure about closing the gate, of course, but Ross had a lot of jobs, and I think that's what happened at Nottingham Forest. They didn't have a lot of structure. There was a lot of people doing the same job, and what I find when I first saw Nottingham Forest was they were a championship club in the Premier League. A lot of the things from the training ground to the hospitality area to the ground, there was a lot of things wrong. The staff were also in the championship mentality, and the problem is, and this is the hardest thing for clubs that get promoted, not promoted like up and down like a Burnley, because they should be a bit more savvy to what goes on in the Premier League, but they were a championship club going into the Premier League, and there was a lot of things that they weren't aware of, and it caught them out as a club. And now they're starting to see themselves as an established Premier League club. There's a lot more staff going into the club and a lot more things going on behind the scenes, which was better than it was 2 years ago.
Now, before we hear some more of Mark and Ian's thoughts, we're in partnership with Wix Trade Pro, and for any tradespeople out there, this one is for you.
That's right, because Wix Trade Pro is here to save you time and money.
Save 10% every time you shop in-store or online. There's no minimum spend, no hassle, just savings.
Amazing. And what's more, Wix Trade Pro want you to start the new year off right.
That's why they've introduced Smart Water, the award-winning forensic marking technology that's proven to deter tool thieves and make your gear traceable and recoverable. And all it takes is 3 simple steps.
That's right. First, mark your tools with the applicator and solution provided. Then place the deterrent signage on windows and doors before registering your marked tools so they can be identified. If only VAR made things that easy.
You're telling me.
To sign up and start saving, just download the Wix Trade Pro app today.
So we've had a little bit of Frank, we've had a little bit of Deitch, and now we're going to have some Liam Rosenior. And what was the quote again? He said, the notable quote about managing means you're aging men. We're talking about 3 aging men.
Well, one of us is aged. You two are still aging. I've just aged.
His record so far, I think he's won 6 out of 9, right? But it's interesting when there's a manager where the focus isn't on his results, but it's on his management style.
Are you obsessed about the way he goes about his interviews?
Will from the In-Betweeners is one comparison. There's a bit of David Brent being chucked around. I saw him having a go at the fan the other night.
It's hard not to be intrigued by it.
Is it?
He is quite interesting.
Because
I think he's an interesting character.
Different.
I like him.
Yeah, exactly. When you see somebody walk onto the Premier League stage who is different to the people who are already there and speaks in a way that's different to those who are already there, then of course your antennae prick up. First thing I say about him was he had a great reputation as a coach when he was at Derby. He was obviously assistant to Wayne Rooney when Wayne did quite well at Derby. And I remember people saying back then, not to take anything away from the job that Wayne did, a lot of people were saying, Rosenior's the coach, he's doing the coaching, that boy's clever. Did very well at Hull, got binned off for finishing 6th.
In the playoffs.
I hope he never gets a job at Forest.
What, one man to the other?
And, you know, he's turned up at Chelsea. I said on this podcast, I didn't like the way he turned up at Chelsea. He's working for one of their sister clubs and Chelsea need a manager, so they just go and say, oh, sorry, Strasbourg, I know this guy's doing quite a good job for you, but we're having him now, thank you very much. I didn't like that. Not really his fault. Don't know whether he was within his agency to say no or not, but he's here now, and it's fascinating in a slightly kind of, there's a car crash on its way manner of listening to him speak.
Only 2 English managers have won their first 4 Premier League fixtures.
Only 2?
Only 2. Liam Rosenior being one of them.
And who's the other one?
Very good question.
Well, tell me you've got the answer.
I don't have the answer. I find it quite interesting with social media because you've got teenage kids, right? What a terrible time to be a football manager with teenage kids. And he isn't on social media or anything, but I did like his quote. He said, if I wear glasses or sound a little bit over the top on a speaker, articulate myself in a certain way, or I don't look like a manager, it doesn't bother me at all. So it seems that all of it's water off a duck's back.
Which is okay when you and that's
when you're
because he's winning.
When you're winning. But watch the Thomas Frank syndrome when you shrink as that pressure grows.
I find it absolutely amazing how we're so worried about the way Liam Rosenior's dressing, what he's wearing, his glasses, and we're actually not seeing what's on the football
It's
pitch.
like politics in this country as well. When you start talking about politicians,
but no other country. We never. And I've been around the world and I've refereed in many different countries, and I've heard coaches say the same thing. They don't go to the level of scrutiny that they do in England, and that you Ian, and your colleagues take that to an nth degree in England. I think we're obsessed about somebody not doing well. Everybody's got this failure. I'm not saying everybody. I'm just saying everybody's hitting Liam Rosenior at the minute to fail, when actually he's won 6 off 9. And as we talk, they played Leeds last night, and if it wasn't for Cole Palmer's miss at the end, it would have been 3-2, and it would have been another victory.
Beating Napoli in the Champions League 3-2 after coming from behind as well was a big.
But
result.
why is English media so obsessed with the way he is as a person and not what he's delivering on the field or off the field at Chelsea Football Club?
It was Craig Shakespeare, by the way.
Yeah, was it
Leicester 2017.
You just had that down the earpiece.
But then what happened with Craig Shakespeare didn't work out particularly well there.
But why were obsessed with that?
It's a really, are we obsessed with that?
This goes back a long way, by the way. Graham Taylor, turnips. Stephen
Wally
Claret, the Wally with the Brawley.
Why?
But I think that, again, you didn't really have that with the successful, powerful characters, did you? You know, Mourinho made himself the special one, didn't he?
The exposure was greater now because they have to do more. You know, back in the day, it was literally just maybe one TV interview and then onto the newspapers. You go to a big Premier League game now. You've both been there, guys. Mark, you've been there so many times. You see that all the interview stations lined up by the side of the pitch, and with all the foreign rights holders. So the managers are constantly talking. So even if a manager says listens to the briefing he gets from his press officer before he goes to talk, and the press officer says, right, don't get taken down that path, be careful of this. Even if he listens to all of that in his first interview, second interview, his third, if he then slips up in an interview with Norwegian TV, it's all over social media within a minute. So they speak more. They speak more than they ever did. They have to speak more than they ever did.
That's true.
And there's 2 ways of doing it, right? You can come in like Michael Carrick did after the West Ham game on Tuesday night. I was present. What's the best way to say it without being really rude? Put it this way, they're not going to get a lot of headlines out of what Michael Carrick says, okay? He's probably doing that on purpose, okay? You're getting a lot of headlines out of what Liam Rosenior is saying at the moment. And as a human being, rather than a journalist, I look at... I've not been in any of his press conferences yet, by the way. I've not done a Chelsea game since he got the job. I look at it a little bit with my fingers over my eyes, thinking, "Oh, just be careful, mate." On a human level, you're starting to become a bit of a parody of
This
yourself.
has happened a lot in your career, I'd imagine, right? Where you're interviewing somebody and you're thinking, just save yourself here. Why are you going down that road? But you would traditionally bury that in an interview. What if you're doing a spread in the paper? You're looking at 1,200 words, perhaps, right? So if something slightly controversial, you know what the headline is, you know what the top line is, but you'll bury something to protect somebody you've got a bit of affinity for.
I think there's a feeling
Affinity with.
I think there's a feeling that among the general public that journalists in any walk of life, whatever it is they cover, are just there to kind of in it for themselves, and they'll just take everything they can out of a situation and to hell with the consequences for the interviewee. And it's actually not like that at all. You know, we go into press conferences hoping that someone's going to say something interesting, but there have been times I've thought, "Oh, please don't say that. Please don't. Oh, you've said it." And to reference your point, Gordon, yeah, I've been in lots of situations just with what we call a one-on-one, where you've got an interview with a manager or a player just for yourself. And yeah, many times players, particularly players, because managers tend to be a bit cuter, particularly players, young players, have said something in an interview with me, and I've just thought, that's going to play really badly for you. And I can tell that you don't even really know that you've said it, okay? And so I'm going to look after you here by either not using it, or if I do use it, I'll tuck it away in paragraph 45 instead of paragraph 2, where it probably should be. Okay? The danger with that policy these days, with the way that the world works now with digital media, is that you can tuck it away in paragraph 45, but someone else, another organisation, will take it out of paragraph 45, put it on the top of their website. So you've got to think about all these things all the time, and you do. You absolutely do.
I think of
and I'm
examples.
sure you did in your line of.
Happened recently. I was in a pub recently having a pint with Robbie Williams, manager. Right, funny this, and there's a great example of this where he had done an interview with a girl, Clemmy Moody, and he'd mentioned that he was having trouble with his eyesight because he'd been taking his Ozempic. Now, immediately, if I had known that that's your front page, Robbie, I'm going blind. But the other side of that is Robbie's now going to struggle for insurance for his tour. That will cause all kinds of havoc for him, mentioning that in an interview. And it's one of them, I can imagine him saying it and thinking, that's going to be taken out by every sub-editor, every editor I present this copy to, that's going to be the top line. You could tell me something incredible now, and that's the front page, Robbie, I'm going blind. And you have those moments, don't you? I'm sure in an interview where you're like, why have you said that? But you said it. Yeah,
absolutely. And when you're in an interview, I did an interview. Do you remember the guy? Remember, you would know Mark because he played for Newcastle in a League Cup final. Remember the goalkeeper Loris Karius who was at Liverpool. Yeah. So he's in the team and he makes the errors. Okay. And I've got an interview with him. This is before he then played in the Champions League final, which finished him. But that season when he's making errors, right, and he's made a big error at Bournemouth, and I'm thinking, my interview's off. There's no way this interview's going to happen on the back of that. Anyway, it was on. The guy, Matt McCann, who was doing the comms at Liverpool at the time, was a brilliant guy and very good at seeing bigger pictures. He was like, no, Ian, we're doing it. Come and do it. We trust you. Come and do it. Met him in a nice cafe in Liverpool. Matt was there, did the interview, and Gary Neville had been very, very critical of Karius on co-coms. And I, as you do, I got to do my job. So I put this to Karius, and he absolutely buries Neville, just over about 8 paragraphs. What was he like as a manager? It's easy for him to be a pundit. Blah 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 blah. I come out the interview, but you can tell that Karius wants to say this. Come out the interview, and I know how that's going to play out. I say to Matt McCann, "What do you think about that?" We're comfortable with it. He said Loris obviously wanted to say it. He said we're comfortable with it. He said he wants to say it. So on that scale, you run it, and that story then ran for about 4 days. Gary Neville came back at Loris and said something. I was on a skiing holiday. Gary rang me about it. We had a conversation about it. I wrote something else about it. That story went for about a week. But Liverpool and Karius were like, it's fine. We're comfortable with this because our player wants to say it. There's loads of instances when you're in an interview and you think to yourself, if he knew what he just said and what it means and how it's going to look for him, he wouldn't have said that. And that's when, as a journalist, you've got to make the call on whether you look after yourself, i.e. great headline, office will be delighted, or you look after the player. And every single time you look after the player, because you just do, because you're a human being and you know that it's the right thing to do. If you feel someone has said something without really having the experience of the way the media works to know how it will play out.
Well, you mentioned a good point as well. Martin Samuel's interview with Ashley Young, and it was a bit lyrics on his arm, but those things would traditionally be in the paper and be forgotten about really in a couple of days. But now it's regurgitated, rewritten, aggregated, shared, clipped up. Yeah. Commentators will take it and read it and voice it and put it on social media, and the short form video will get a big.
And if you do an interview with a player, you know that everything that he says of interest within half an hour of your interview appearing digitally will be clipped up and will be on all your rivals' websites within half an hour, and they won't care. Because it's not their interview. They'll just be looking for clicks. And just like we will when we take stuff from other sites, don't get me wrong, I'm not pretending that we're any different. We're absolutely not. But when it's your property, you look after it and you look after the person who's giving you the access. When it's not your property, then all bets are off. And that's one of the difficulties for modern sportsmen and women these days in terms of what they say.
We can show how that works. Mark Clattenburg, what do you think of Howard Webb?
No comment.
I did an interview this season with Donnarumma at City, which City sorted out for me. But they've got to get it past his people. He's a big name. he's got his own PR team. Obviously, he's played in Milan and at PSG. He's a captain of Italy. He's a big deal. So it's not just a situation where City say, "Oh yeah, Ian, come along and see him." They've got to get it past his people. They've got to vouch for me. City have got to say, "Don't worry, we trust this guy. Gio will be, or Gigi will be safe with him." Blah blah blah. So you go and do it, okay? And it's through an interpreter, and it's a quite a slow moving interview. At the end of it, I just said to him, because Donnarumma was burgled in his apartment in Paris. I think may even have been tied up by the burglars, him and his wife. Incredibly traumatic thing. So right at the end, I thought, I haven't really got a line out of this interview. It's been quite slow. So I just chucked it in. I just said to him, I said, how did you, the burglary in Paris, how did you cope with that? And he answered it without pause. And I won't tell you what he said. And he answered it without pause. And he gave me a good answer. And I said, a similar thing happened to me, which he did without being tied up. But I did have a bit of a traumatic burglary experience. So we talked a bit about that. And then we ended the interview. And I thought, I've got my line. I've got my line there now. And then almost immediately, City were like, Gigi's people don't want that bit to be used. And you're like, well, why not? They said, he didn't know the question was coming and he wasn't prepared for it. And I said, but the answer's perfectly to know. So you're then in the situation as a journalist going, I'd be interested to know what you would have done. But what would you have done? What would you have done?
If the premise of the interview was set up where they had an agreed contract to say, we're going to have final say on what happens, then you can't really argue with that. However, you probably then went through a process of fighting and arguing for that to be included. There is a little grey area where you haven't told the desk what you've got, and that's where you have to make the decision.
Yeah,
because they would never know.
So, and to be fair, I've got...
As you would bury it.
Yeah.
So full disclosure, that was one of those interviews where I had, because Donnarumma's people were nervous about it, I had given them a list of topics beforehand, and that wasn't on it.
Okay.
So, okay, all right. Well, even so, I would have been within my rights.
Yeah, you would.
To say, sorry guys, I'm using it.
Yeah.
You said it. I'm using it. You said it, I'm using it. But then you think, well, if I do that...
You're burning a lot of...
You're upsetting the... Actually, I'm not sure the player would have cared, but you're upsetting the players' people. That then causes a problem for City with the players' people because they vouch for you. That then causes me a problem with City, who previously given me Jack Grealish and Phil Foden and endless others to interview. And I do know that whereas other clubs won't touch me with a barge pole, City do see me as a safe pair of hands. So you make the decision and you don't use it. And you don't use it and you move on and you go home and you feel grumpy about it for 24 hours. And when it appears, you look at it and think, well, that's not how it should have looked. It should have looked like this. And then you get over it.
This was the horrible battle in newspapers where I totally understand the relationships you have to keep. Because I had to do a similar thing with the entertainment gig, but for the news guys in the office, trying to appease them with a situation. That's a great story. We've got to do it. Trying to balance the internal politics of it's a nightmare as well.
You also, absolutely, and you're right. You've got to make sure. I think I did tell the office, and they were like, okay, whatever.
Enough, yeah.
But you also got to be good. You've got to be a good person.
You have, yeah.
You've got to be able to close your eyes at night. You have, really.
Yeah, and listen, there's a long road ahead of you. That's the way I look at it, and it's the reason people would still sit down and have a conversation with us about it. I mean, it's funny you're talking about. I can think of hundreds of examples, but one that stands up out in football for me was Craig Levine, who managed Leicester for a bit. But when he managed Scotland, he adopted a 4-6-0 formation. And he just dug his heels in so deep. And then started to say, if Pep Guardiola did this, and you're like, oh no, you're not hiding nothing in that argument.
Well, that's similar to the formation that Scotland will be using at the World Cup, isn't it?
Right, okay, and that's where we're going to end this podcast.
What was that, 6-4-0?
Yeah. Can I just say, by the way, let's make a prediction here and now. Thomas Frank, before we finish, will end up at either Brighton or Crystal Palace.
Anyway, this end the podcast there. That's it for another episode of Whistleblowers. Thank you very much for listening or watching or however you consume this three-way ramble. We will be back very soon with a bonus ball. In the meantime, get in touch, send us an email, whistleblowers@dailymail.com. That's whistleblowers@dailymail.com. Mark, have you brought your whistle?
No.
Thank you very much for watching Whistleblowers. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Remember, episodes every Thursday and Tuesday. And on a Sunday, you'll get our clip of the week.